Using your telescope, camera, and computer research, track down unidentified anomalous phenomena in the search for UAPs. Thank you for joining us at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. The Search for UAPs is a logic deduction game for 1 to 5 players, and it takes about an hour to play. It's designed by Ted Alspach and published by Bezier Games and Renegade Game Studios.
They sent us this copy to review. Now, this game is in the Search for universe, similar to the Search for Planet X and the Search for Lost Species.
Now, we're going to give you a super quick overview of the game, this one, and then share our thoughts.
In the Search for UAPs, you're an astronomy enthusiast who spots something unusual in the sky. By taking actions to scan the sky, analyze satellites, move around, and take pictures, you'll be able to learn what objects occupy different sectors of space. You'll need to make deductions based on the logic rules for your specific game. The more pieces of information you correctly determine, the more points you'll score. Finding the UAP is one of the main goals of the game and the endgame trigger, but the winner is the player with the most points. Deduction and action management are both important in the search for UAPs.
As we move into our thoughts on the search for UAPs, we're going to divide into 5 different sections. Components, and they all start with C, the 5 C's. Components, comparisons to the other search for games, critiques, commendations, and then finally, our conclusions. So, let's start with our components section.
All right, so this game comes with double-sided boards that are magnetic. And this is for the main game board and also the player boards that you have behind your screen.
Yeah, not all the player boards, but the specific ring.
Because things are going to be rotating, so you need to be able to move it. And I thought that the magnetic aspect of the boards was an ingenious way to do that, and it really does help with the gameplay.
And not only, like, if you think about it, magnets have polar opposites. So, like, if you try to put it on the wrong way, it won't let you.
Right. So it won't let you accidentally mix and match the two sides of the board. It will always do it the correct way.
Other components are the wet erase markers. So they could have used pencils or pens or dry erase. So they say this is going to be a little bit easier for like this wiping off and things like that. So I don't know, like we have a lot of games that use dry erase, and I will say not all of them hold up as well. So we'll see how wet. I don't use a lot of wet erase markers, so we'll see how long they last.
And part of it is because they don't, like, you're not going to accidentally smudge off your X.
Yeah.
Where with a dry erase, you could accidentally brush it off, and then you've lost your deduction information. So with the wet erase, it's not going to accidentally come off.
Yeah.
So another thing, component-wise, that I like is the player screens with the rule reminders, and that's going to be the same in all of the Search for games, but it is very helpful to have a bunch of the rules and things that you're doing in the game and how things score right there in front of you.
There are not a lot of wooden components. I like my wooden components in games like this, strategy games. There are player pieces, though, and they all have individual sort of shapes and designs, so I like that.
We definitely need to mention that this is an app-assisted game. You have to use the app. There is no option without it. But the app, I thought, was very user-friendly. It worked well and really takes that logic deduction rules to the next level. If you had a person trying to do that, it could put mistakes into the game.
It's just like you just have to plan on mistakes if a person's in charge of that.
Right. So this game does have an app. You have to use it, but it works very well. And it's a free app.
Yes. So that's great because it leads into our next big category, which is comparisons to the other Search for games. Now, we are a big fan of the Search for games, so we should just say that off the top.
Yes. I enjoy all of them.
Yeah, and the first one was with Foxtrot and Renegade. And this was the Search for Planet X. and then search for lost species, and this one. So, Melissa, out of the three of these, where does this sort of line up with complexity?
I would say that the search for UAPs is definitely more complex than Planet X.
Yeah.
It takes it to the next level. I'm not as sure between these two, because Lost Species did add that aspect of the terrain that you're moving around, and the shapes are a little more different that you're making with the animals. And you have
the cards.
You also have like 5 or 6 different animals that you could use as the lost species. So there's more variety.
Yeah.
But I think they're similar with maybe a touch more to you.
I'm just going to say, I think this is more complex. And here's the thing. I think there's a lot of variability going into this game where you don't know how many objects are going to be in the space in space.
Yeah, because the meteorites could be 0 or 2 or 4 or 6.
And it's not just meteors. It's like other objects too are like that. It could be in your game. You could have 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8 of these things. You're like, that just throws to me a lot of just like unknowns. And when you have unknowns in the game, it's a little bit harder. I think it brings more difficulty, because then you're like, oh, I'm searching for 2 meteors. Where are those meteors? Like, you're just looking for them. And this one, you're like, there could be no meteors. And the way the app works is like, for most of the thing, you're looking at a quadrant, or you're looking at a specific area, like, find the meteors. Or are there any meteors in this area? No. It's like, you could go around the whole board. And we'll get to that a little bit in the critiques. But I think that because of the unknowns, that brings more difficulty to the game.
Okay, yeah. I would concur with that. Other comparisons, Lost Species brought in a movement aspect where you're moving around the island.
Yes.
UAPs also has a little bit of movement because you can move your character to different quadrants
and the boats
on the Earth.
Too.
Oh, the boats for Lost Species.
So different ways of moving.
Yes. So where you are on the board matters for both of these.
Yes.
Where it has been a little while since I played Planet X, but I feel like this was more as the Earth rotated, you had access to more things. But in both of these, it's more player agency.
Correct. I think theme-wise, you can just tell right away. These two are very similar to me in theme.
Yeah.
Like when I looked at this, I'm like, is it really that different of a is it that different of a game? Like, these two, I'm like, they're different. Because you're looking for lost species, like animals on terrain, like you were saying. There's a lot of things that are different in this game compared to this. We're back up in space again, and I even feel like some of the things you're trying to find, like the telescopes and the meteors, are very similar. Now, it's not one for one, but there's a lot of similarities in the theme, which I think you just need to go, if you're gonna go into buying which one and you want an easier game, go back to do this one. If
or maybe more streamlined.
Yeah, more streamlined. This is definitely, and we'll probably talk about this soon, it's more gamified, this game. So anyway. Oh, why don't we this is our next note here.
Yes, so I guess before I jump into that, one other difference is there are satellites and the search for UAPs. And you have to find the satellite, and then you can get information from the satellite. So it's kind of like the towns or the research things in these, but it's not an automatic thing. You have to go find them. And that does make it a little more gamery, along with some of the things that trigger automatically in these two, you have to take actions to do. So taking pictures or doing the little research things in these two normally happened at, at this point, take your pictures.
Everyone's doing it.
Everyone does it. At this point, we're going to reveal them. Well, search for UAPs, you have to take an action to do those things. So you have to think about when you want to do it. And that gives you more control and agency, but it can slow down a little bit your progress to finding information because you're taking some of your time to do that.
Well, let's go. That brings me to the critiques section, so let's just jump right in there. So going along with it's taking an action. Not only is it taking an action, which I find yes, it brings more strategy probably in the game. Personally, for this game, I know it's all about getting points. But the whole point of the game, the whole point for each of these games is you're searching for Planet X, you're searching for lost pieces, and you're searching for UAPs. Like, what's the big idea?
Find the thing.
Find the big thing, right? So to me, my brain works race. So I'm racing to find that thing. Whereas Melissa's probably like, more like, I'm trying to find everything. I want to have this full experience.
Get lots of points, figure out what's around.
I'm trying to like find the big thing in the game, UAPs. So not only in this game, in UAPs, do you have to take an action to do that. So you're spending time.
To take the photos.
To take the photo, which means someone else could not be, like other players are like, they don't have to take time, so they could be searching for that time.
But I'm getting points if my photos are correct.
Correct. And then the other thing is not only does it take time to take pictures, but you also have to be in the right quadrant to even do it. So you're like, oh, I really want to take a picture of the satellite. I know where it is. You know, you figured it out. But the board rotates, and now you're not in that quadrant anymore. It's like, it's going to take time for you to move. And if it moves again, like, there's a possibility of you wasting time. And I don't think I personally like that in this game. I don't like, when you're talking about being efficient with your time, these games help you say everyone's taking pictures. This one, you could be inefficient trying to be efficient, trying to get, like, you're like, oh, I'm going after points. I want to do this. That's my critique. It's like, I don't know if I actually like that in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
We're different people. We have different opinions. One of my critiques is the game, like we mentioned, the inner board rotates. So it's different quadrants are aligned. So it starts off, if you're playing the regular board, with like 9 and 16 aligned or something like that. Yeah. And there are certain objects, the meteorites, that at the start state, they are aligned together.
To help your logic deduction.
Right. So if it's in the top one, it's also in the inner one, stacked together. Well, you start rotating it, and you find a meteorite, and you have to think back to, oh, what was the start setup for me to determine where that other meteorite was? So Kevin, I think in our last game, actually...
I messed up, because I rotated it one, not quadrant section, but I rotated one, like, little area the wrong way, to make sure. I was like, okay, I know where the meteor is. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, it's not this, so we're good. Or something in my mind, I'm good. Like, and I just missed it by one number. And it was just like, that threw that part of the game off for me.
So,
but that was I agree, it's my fault. But it's just
yeah. So a hint or piece of advice is, if you're not playing full player count, you might want to use one of the extra player boards and just set it to the original rotation and have it available for everyone to look at, so that they can quickly glance and go, oh, 2 and 15 were aligned. Okay, so now I know if I found a meteor on 2, there's also one on 15. Whatever the math works out. That might not be exactly correct, but that is one way to kind of help with that mental thing. We were kind of rotating it back to look, and then rotating it back, and so.
The app is good in making sure that you are, it doesn't tell you what it was originally, but at least it tells you what you're supposed to be on.
Yes, the app will tell you what your board is supposed to look like.
And everyone's is different, because you're all at different
times along the track.
I have one more critique before we move on to our commendations. And that is, it has to do with the variableness of the objects that you're searching for. And I did mention this a little bit, but the critique part is, because of the variableness of, or the number of objects, that could really hinder, back to my efficiency thing, because this is, to me, a game that's all about using your time wisely. And I could be using my time inefficiently, because I'm like searching for meteors, or I'm searching for whatever that object is, and there could literally be none in the game, which happened to us the last time we played, because there were
there was one set.
There was one set, but there's just a lot of space junk. And to me, I'm not really searching for space junk. I'm searching for the cool stuff. Whether or not it's the meteorites or the other things like satellites or whether it's not the big UAP, like I'm looking for more than just space junk. And space junk is actually not helping you
Right, because you don't get any points for finding space junk.
She's all about points. It's not even points. It's just about the logic deduction. If you're not finding things, if you're just finding space junk, you're not finding other things which are helping you deduce where other things are, and then you're making the leaps, not like illogical leaps, but you're making logical leaps to make sure that you're doing where all the things are on the quadrant. So my critique is, I just wish that there wasn't maybe as much variableness. Maybe there's just too many things. I just want it to be more contained. But for those that just love, like, oh, this game is just going to be totally different. I don't know how many there's going to be. Then hey, it's a game for you. But we're saying all these things because we love these games, not because we hate these games. So let's move to our commendations.
Commendations. All right. So
especially for UAPs. Yes.
Yes. Definitely talking about UAPs. Do we want to keep I guess.
Yeah, we can put one more.
Just so it doesn't get confusing what we're talking about. We're talking about UAPs here. I like that there are 2 difficulty levels. I believe Search for Planet X also has that, where it's the 2 sides of the board. One of them has fewer sections, and the other side has a lot more sections. So I like the variability of that. It also, the same with the other versions, has the variability for individual players to set their difficulty level. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to choose basic or advanced, and that's going to determine the side of the board you use. And then each player can determine how many starting hints they get. Beginner has a bunch of them, all the way up to like super experienced genius with none. Yeah. But it's like there's a lot of variability in that scale. Yeah. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's something between like 12 to 0 hints around that. So that can really help you when you're playing with different experience levels or kids and adults. I don't recommend this for kids, maybe teens. But anyway, I like that it has that variability.
I want to commend the app. The app gives you alerts. And actually, when we were playing, it was like, I want to do this thing. Oh, the app actually like blinks the thing that you're supposed to do next.
Like, oh,
rotate your board now. So do it. Because it wants to make sure that you're not messing up your game. So it's gonna when those things happen, when there's a conference, or I forget exactly what they're called, but when there's a special thing happening in the game, whether you're rotating the board or there's something happening that you need to do, or
you verify the photos, flip them up to see if they're
correct. It's
going
to like blink and like pulse on your phone to make sure that you do it, and it will not go away until you actually push the button. So I like that. It's like leading you through to making sure you're playing the game properly. And so you're not messing things up.
And it keeps track of where you should be on the board because you're clicking things when you move. Yeah. It knows how much time you've used, so when you cross those triggers. So yeah, I thought it was very easy to use, and I liked that it kind of helped you not miss those big important moments. So
one more thing. Why don't you talk about the one more commendation?
Oh, yes. So one more commendation. There are lots of commendations.
Yeah, one more that we want to highlight.
So this game has 4 main quadrant areas. I think it's still 4 quadrants on the other side.
It's still 4.
Yes, because it's the same board.
Yes.
Using logic here. Anyway, there are quadrant modifiers that you can use, that you have to use. The app will tell you which ones to use, but you can adjust that if it's given you ones that you've used before or ones that you don't like. Yep. Some of them are helpful. Like, every time you scan in this quadrant, it only costs 1 time instead of 1, 2, or 3. Or you can move for free through this quadrant. Lots of different helpful things. There are also ones that are red. So red, bad, blue, good. And they may make it more difficult. Like it costs more time, or it takes an extra move point to go through them, or you can't analyze satellites in this area. So I love variability.
Yeah, I probably won't ever play with the reds. But I understand that people enjoy a more difficult and punishing game. I'm just not that type of person. I want to enjoy it, so I'm going to use stuff that's going to help.
Yeah, so anyway, I enjoyed the variability of that. And again, it adds like that one extra step of strategy of, oh, I want to get to this quadrant so I can make use of the benefit. But it is rotating around, so I really want to use it when it's facing quadrant 14.
Yep.
So I have to do it this turn because next turn it's going to rotate away from that. So it does potentially give you more reason to move around the Earth and the different places. So I enjoyed that addition to the game.
I think we talk about our combinations, but as we move into our conclusion, I think we would both agree that we enjoy these types of games, like logic, deduction, like puzzly type games. That's like our type of games that we enjoy, especially logic deduction. We're not social deduction people.
Right. So Turing Machine, the search for games.
Yeah. So
things we really like.
We really do enjoy those types of games. So as we conclude, Melissa, why search for UAPs?
So I think because we've kind of talked about this is the most complex of the series. My conclusions. I would probably not recommend this for someone as their introduction to this series of games unless they really are a logic deduction player. They love Turing Machine, all of that.
I still start with
Planet X as the most streamlined.
Most streamlined. Like if they have never played any of these, I would do Planet X or Lost Species first. That's just me.
But beyond that, I would say if you like these games, I think UAPs is the next step and would definitely recommend it.
Yeah. I
have thoroughly enjoyed my plays of it. Now I have found the UAP just about every time. But it is similar to the other ones, but just takes it up that extra notch of deduction and following the logic and even the strategy of how to get those points and use your action selection timeline better.
The one nice thing I just noticed that I don't think we actually talked about was the number of players. Let's talk about that real quick in our conclusion. So Planet X and Lost Species, you can't see on camera, sorry, those only go to 4 players. So here you go. If you have a game group and you're like, everyone loves this type of game, and you want to play 5 players, Search for UAPs goes up to 5.
Goes up to 5.
So I'm not saying that's the only reason to play. I'm just saying it's another reason.
Yeah. It's another benefit if you have that higher player count that you're trying to service. Yeah. And if you like variability, a lot of variability in this one with those modifiers, with the amount of things that could be in the sky.
Yeah, I think we've hit that a lot in this video.
Which may be beneficial to some people. Yeah. It may be annoying to other people.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I'm not personally like that so much gamified. Since I played the others. I think that's where it is. Like, I have experience with all 3 now. And I think my personality, I lean towards...
All right, yeah. So which of the 3 are you... are you putting on the table?
Yeah, if I was going to choose, I would do... personally, I'd probably do Planet X first, then Lost Species, then this one.
Is that a sort of non-answer? Or that's your, like...
No, that's
the first, second, third choice.
Yeah, first, second, third choice. Like, I would literally do in that order. So, not saying that this is a bad game, I'm just saying for me, I like these other games just a little bit better because of the streamlinedness of them.
So for me, and obviously when you're playing games, you also have to consider the people that you're playing with. But if it was my choice and everyone was at the same level, I think I would go for UAPs.
Because it's so gamified.
Because it is more gamified. It's a little bit more logic.
And I'll play it with Melissa and other people that really want to play it. It's just like, I'm looking for a more streamlined experience.
So Kevin, more streamlined. Me, more gamery and logic.
And I think it goes back to my initial thought. These types of games for me I have this race mechanic in my mind, so it's not about points. Like, I literally don't play this game for points normally. I'm trying to find whatever the lost thing is.
And I'm like, oh, how much can I find out?
And that's okay.
And fill
like,
out the board.
I think that's okay. Like, I'm okay not winning, but if I find the lost species, I feel like I've won.
So, all 3 games, I would say, are great games. If you love logic, deduction, I don't think you can really go wrong with any of them. They just might fit different groups.
And I know that I feel like we're being super critiquing. I feel like I'm critiquing on this one, but they're all from Renegade Game Studios. It's not like they're all from different publishers. So they're all benefiting the company that we're doing this video for.
Yeah, so all 3 great games if you love deduction, lost species if you want the more of the animal theme, and there's more of the terrain moving around. It has more of that spatial aspect to it. Yeah. Obviously, Planet X, and I keep like motioning to the games that are on the table that you can't see. Planet X UAPs, similar theme, just a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more gamery aspects to it. Yeah,
I'd love to know in the comments, like, have you played any of these 3, and would you concur with some of our thoughts on what we've been saying? So,
thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.